and that'll get to it. There we go. I'll start over for just a brief bit here. Good evening. I'm Melissa Schwartz. I'm the gifted co-chair for the PV United Parent Council. We have people that are here live in the room at the district office, and we have a lot of people on our Zoom platform. We will be recording this presentation, so it will be available on our YouTube channel, the PV United Parent Council YouTube channel after this. Usually takes us about 24 hours to get it on there. For those that are not familiar with the PV United Parent Council, we do many of these evening events for our parents across the district, and for others, I've heard of people from all across the country that have come and joined our presentations and listened to them. We have years worth of content on there. If you're new parents and looking for some information, we do have a lot of content on that YouTube channel. It's very easy to find. You can either Google PV_UPC or PV UPC, and usually you'll find it either way. But it is a lot of different programming options for you, from something similar to this, although this is going to have some new content. But our director of Gifted gave a similar presentation about a month ago. Usually it's done in the spring, when kids are tested and get the results back that they are gifted. The parents are like, now what do we do? And PV is one of the strongest districts in this state with our gifted programming and gifted options. So I look forward to introducing you to Rebekah Keur, who is one of our gifted teachers here. I've had the pleasure of my students having her as one of their teachers, so I'm thrilled that she's presenting this evening. If you have questions and you're online, please use the chat. We do not have our speakers on here just to make sure we don't get feedback, but we will try to get your questions asked later on. We do ask for anyone present or online that you keep your questions general. At the very end, we will shut down the recording and then you can ask, but we still suggest that they be generalized questions. Otherwise, you can go to our gifted department and ask more personal ones later. Thank you very much and enjoy the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. I'll turn this on just in case. Hopefully that works. Okay. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. So my name is Rebekah West Keur, and thank you again, Melissa, for the introduction. I am one of the gifted specialists here at our district. And I am coming to you tonight as a presentation that's a collaboration between PV Schools and ASU, where I'm a doctorate student at ASU. So you all noticed when you came in, we gave you this consent letter. This consent letter is letting you know that this is part of a study that I'm doing, really working with the district on how we can better meet the needs of our students and you, their parents and guardians. So that's what this is about tonight. This part of this is tonight. So this letter here just goes over the consent, what the study is, and the aspect of the consent. None of your identifying information is being collected. None of that's going to happen. They're running the chat, so I won't even see who is there online. That's for them there. So if you do consent to being a part of this first part of the study, which is just the presentation, you would just mark yes on this piece of paper back here. That's it. You can take notes on anything but that piece of paper, or at least I just need the top of this piece of paper. You can have the bottom of it. And for you at home, at the end of all of this, I do have the consent survey link for you at home, so you'll be able to see it that way too. I should have put it at the beginning and the end. I apologize for that. Okay, so that being said, I think if I want to do this. Okay, that being said, I do have translation services here for me tonight. To translate in Spanish if anyone is needing Spanish translation. They're going to hang out for about 10 more minutes in case more people show up. But if you do need translation services, they are available to you, and they're sitting in the back there. And they'll be able to do that for you at home. It would work the same way as well, where they also have access to this presentation. This presentation is available in English and Spanish, and the gifted department will have this later on as well. So they will have this presentation for all of you to be able to review at your own leisure. And as Melissa had said, at the end, we will have a question and answer period. General questions are welcome. If you have more specific questions that pertain to your unique situation, you'll want to reach out to the gifted department because they will be more apt to be able to help you, but I will do the best I can, either saying, yes, I can answer that, or no, but here's who can. So with that, we're going to go ahead and begin. I do want to honor your time, so thank you for your patience in this. So I'm here to talk to you tonight, Gifted 101. One of the unique things, as Melissa had mentioned, a talk was just given approximately a month ago. A talk was just given with the district. And why this one's happening differently, or again, is because new kids were identified with a new test. So that's part of what we're going to be discussing here tonight, is what makes this a unique situation that brings us all together here this evening. The last week of school, and for that, thank you for coming the last week of school to do this so that I can help you better help your children. So this is going to be an introduction to the unique needs of gifted learners, really just helping your gifted and talented children grow. Our agenda that we're going to cover is what is a gifted learner, some characteristics of giftedness, gifted identification, meeting the needs of a gifted child, and then really getting into what is gifted education here in PV schools and what are some supports that are available to you as the parents and guardians of these children. So this is the layout for this evening, and the hope is that by the end of tonight you have a little bit more information than when you came in the door. Let's see. I do start with 3 definitions of gifted. I'm not going to read them all for you. I'm just going to point out some of these things about giftedness. So when we're dealing with giftedness, let's see if this much work today. I know it does not, I'll just do it this way. When we're working with the definition of gifted students, we're really talking about a potential for high achievement, and that these exceptionalities really necessitate this needs for a specialized education environment for these children. So potential is different than they've already achieved. It's this potential for achievement, and putting them in the right learning environment is going to help them to meet that achievement. So this is where we partner with you as the families, as the educational opportunities, to help your children to reach this potential and developing these capabilities. And again, at the end, you can take pictures with your phones if you want to. You can write whatever notes you want to as we go, and you will have access to all of this later on as well, too. The Department of Ed, so Arizona mandates gifted education. So we're one of the really cool states that mandates that gifted education is offered, which is really good. And one of the things that they speak to is that it's the specialized instruction here or specialized ancillary services, or in addition to specialized ancillary services, that will help your child achieve at levels that are commensurate with their intellectual and their ability. Because your children have this potential for reaching the stratosphere, right? But if we don't mirror that with the education and the environment that they need, they're not going to make that potential. That's what we're here for, is to work collaboratively to help them achieve at these levels that are commensurate with their abilities. And then here, our district further defines this here, that we have these performances, these capabilities in one or more areas of expression: quantitative, mathematical reasoning, verbal, linguistic reasoning, and nonverbal, like spatial reasoning, puzzles, things like that. So your children were all tested in these 3 areas. So these are the 3 areas that your children were tested on, just to see how do they have their areas of expression of performance. Where does that potential lie that we can tap into it as educators to better help them? So what it comes down to is that gifted students can often do demonstrate outstanding talent or show the potential for performing at remarkably high levels of achievement compared to their age level peers. It doesn't mean that they automatically do or that they automatically have. Again, we're talking about the potential and how we can work with you to help them reach that. So that's going to be an important thing. And when we're doing this, we're comparing them to age level peers, other 3rd graders from around the state of Arizona, specifically from our district is what we're looking at, and in some cases from the actual school site itself. So from doing this, we do have some things that are specific to gifted students, and not all gifted students have all of these things. So you're going to see some parts of tonight's presentation that you're like, yes, that's definitely my child. And some of you are like, that's not really my child. Is that giftedness? It could be, right? So we're going to go through this, some qualities or characteristics of gifted children and gifted students. And I want to look at that difference between a student, meaning my job as an educator, teaching your child, and a child, that's your child, which means we're gifted it all the time. We're not just gifted when we're sitting in the classroom, right? We're gifted when we're at home, we're gifted when we're in the car, we're gifted at our activities, we're gifted when we're bothering our siblings, especially when we're bothering our siblings that can come out, okay? So they are aware of their environment. They're aware of everything, sometimes acutely aware of everything that's happening around them. And they're constantly making their connections to this environment and to the stimuli that they have around them. They do prefer movement when thinking, movement when talking. I'm doing a great job demonstrating that tonight because I'm constantly moving. Sorry, I will try to limit that, especially for you at home, but no promises. I'll try though. Integrated thinkers. This means that they're connecting all these ideas, all the stimuli, all the schemas that they've been developing since they started asking you why, and they're constantly going to be making these connections. As they get older and they absorb more information, they're going to make further and deeper connections, more so than you ever possibly thought possible, more so than many of us had the chance to when we were their age. It's really actually exciting. Integrated thinker, they do think ahead of the present moment, so they're often thinking about the future. As young as third grade, fourth grade, they're thinking about that middle school. They're thinking about that middle school because of where they want to go to high school, thinking about that high school because of where they want to go to college. They are forward thinkers like that. They are making these connections already. They do like to collaborate. I'll put that with an asterisk. They do like collaborating if they feel that the people that they're collaborating with are their intellectual peers, or in that specific subset of knowledge that they're fascinated in. If they feel it's fair and even, they love to collaborate. If they don't feel it's fair and even, they might not do so. But this is part of a gifted thinker. They actually will do better having other people to bounce their ideas off of. They can struggle socially though, because if it's not their intellectual peer, they're going to have problems getting through to them. Especially when we're dealing with our younger children, our younger learners, they don't understand, they're still learning those social dynamics. We know that COVID kind of stunted some of that social growth for them too. So they're still learning, how do we socially engage with others who are our own age? And why is it that not all my classmates understand me or how I think or how I want to play, or why I need these rules, or why I need to do things this way? They just don't get me, they just don't understand me. Once they're in an environment with other gifted peers though, a light bulb goes off and they're like, I found my people. I do make sense. I know for myself, I went to school in Mississippi. I didn't get gifted education. So it wasn't until I was in AP classes in high school till I was finally with my intellectual peers, and certainly then going on to college and however many degrees later, right? So we try to make sure that we get these children now, that we get them with their intellectual peers now. We give them the education they need now so that they can become their best version of themselves. And then this one, dreamer. They're a dreamer. Whether it's a dreamer as an inventor, a dreamer as a daydreamer, they're always thinking, making these connections, really kind of going big picture. So they're going to be dreaming about things, dreaming about the future. So some of the key other things, let me turn this off so it's ready for you. Thank you for showing up. For those of you at home, we have translation services here, and they did not need to stay, so I'm releasing them. Thank you. Okay. These next series of slides are rather important. Often when we think of giftedness, especially how it's perceived in media, TV, movies, giftedness, really, they show us as bright students, high-achieving students. Those aren't true gifted students necessarily. They might be. You might have a gifted child who's also a high-achieving child, but there are some key characteristic differences between bright, high-achieving children and gifted children, and this is what we're talking about. There's this, the gifted child here. So where a bright, high-achieving student can be very interested in school, interested in what's happening around them, your gifted child's going to be curious about everything beyond what's happening here and what's happening over there. And oh, I just saw this move. And do you think that the wind does this? What about, this? And they're constantly asking these what questions, right? They're constantly generating ideas and curiosity. A bright student, those are going to be your hand raisers. I know the answer, I know the answer, I know the answer. Your gifted child, they may or may not, they might not even care that they know the answer, right? They're going to be the ones that want to ask the questions. They want to take the lesson beyond what the teacher's bringing to them. So these are going to be your gifted students. The bright student, they're going to pay attention. They're going to be alert. They might not even look like they're paying attention. They might have their head down on the table. They might even be taking a nap, probably not taking a nap, head down, they're actively listening, and they're making these connections in the brain, and then they're gonna pop up like a light bulb and come up with this idea, and you're like, I didn't even know you were focusing or paying attention. And I was that kid. I was the kid that was more like this, not the one that was like this. My teachers didn't even think that I could possibly be advanced remotely because I didn't seem to be paying attention or interested in what was happening around me. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Why would that manifest that way? When we're dealing with the bright student versus the gifted student, a bright student understands the ideas as they're presented to them, but the gifted one is going to actually work through these abstractions and constructing these abstract ideas. Bright student's going to grasp the meaning as it's being conveyed, not often going to go much deeper. But our gifted students are going to draw inferences. It's going to keep going back to those connections. Our bright students might complete our assignments. Gifted students really don't care if they do. That makes no sense to them. They're not in it for playing school. They're in it for learning. So if learning is important to them, and what they're learning is important to them, then they're going to initiate project or ideas. And often they might not even finish their projects because they're going to be jumping on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. And sometimes we can get them, that's the point, we try that in gifted education, to mirror what they want to do with what they need to do so that they do complete their work, but they might not always. Our bright students are going to learn with ease. Especially in elementary school, they're learning. They're constantly absorbing information. Our gifted children usually already know. It's one of the sad truths about gifted education. Often they don't learn anything new till middle school or high school unless they're in a gifted environment because they've already mastered this content or are able to think outside the picture, make these connections enough that they get the illusion of mastering the content. So it can be often that I might get a student not until middle school that never figured out how to read more complex words and work through phonemes and phonemic awareness because they were always able to read these sight words and put ideas together. And then all of a sudden I'm getting them and I'm giving them high school level work and they don't know how to decipher the words on the page because they never actually took the time to learn how to read because their teachers just kept passing them saying they're good, they're good, they're good. We have to get them to the point, which is what gifted education is for, where we're getting past what they know and getting to the point where they can start learning again, right? So this is part of that. Bright students take 6 to 8 repetitions for mastery. Gifted kids, 1 to 2. In gifted education, we tend to accelerate their learning a little bit more. We go deeper, we go more in depth, because we don't need to repeat 6 to 8 times. We are going to give them what they need to help them grow and help them learn here too. Good memorizers, right? Kids are always good memorizers. Gifted students don't necessarily see the point of why should I memorize that. I want to know how to apply that. Memorization is boring. So they're also really good at guessing this. They have some innate knowledge because they made these patterns before, knowledge of things that they already know, and then they're good at guessing the right answers. And you might hear your child's teacher say they never show their work, they never show their work. And the child's like, well, I don't need to, my answer was right. I can see some validity in that. As they get older, it becomes more and more important though that they do show that work, because we've got to see the thinking, especially when we're dealing with advanced mathematics, right? We have to show that thinking. And guessing might help, but it's not going to get us there. But it does get beyond memorizing. So they have to look at the application aspect of things. Bright students can be very attentive. They're paying attention to what's happening around them. But a gifted student is going to be mentally and physically involved in the work. But they might not show that they're paying attention, but they are. Their wheels are constantly turning. It's actually very hard for them to turn off their brains. Bright students are only going to answer what is directly asked, versus a gifted child, they are going to go elaborate on that. They are going to discuss it in detail. They're going to go in tangents, and they're going to go down a rabbit hole, and then they're going to ask you to come along with them, right? They're not going to just stay with, this is what was asked, here's our answer. Because you got their brains working, they're going to keep going down this one. Bright students appreciate love, peer interaction. However, you might notice that your gifted child prefers older kids or even adults because we're more intellectually attuned to who they are and what they need and how they're seeing the world and how they're discussing the world around them. And their age level peers might not necessarily see that or get that or understand that. So they often will seek out the company of adults, because an adult is going to listen and pay attention and ask them those questions and help generate that curiosity work for them. Bright student will usually always, especially high achiever, will always work hard. Always work hard for you. A gifted student is going to play around, it's going to goof off. They're going to work hard on what they want to work hard on, but not work hard on what they don't want to work hard on. They're going to always test well, though, if they care enough to try. If they care enough to show you their knowledge. Sometimes they will just do a bubble sheet and just go straight down the middle and not care. Because for them, it's never about playing school, playing the student. For them, it's always about learning, okay? Bright student will have good ideas. Your gifted child's going to have wild, unique, outlandish ideas that sometimes work. Sometimes they take years to work. Sometimes they take refinement. But it gets really exciting as they get older and you give them more opportunities, and school gives them more opportunities to dive in and figure out those interests and really work through those things, because you're going to see this really cool world open up in front of you here. A bright student can copy accurately. Gifted kids don't really care about copying accurately. They want the big ideas. They want it short. They want it sweet because they want to make those connections. So they're not going to sit here and copy the minutiae of what's on the board. They want to know, why does it matter? What does this have to do with me? Because they're already on to, what's this relate with the rest of the world? I want to create, I want to dream, I want to invent, I want to move on, I want to absorb. Can we get past this mundane right now so I can get past this into the good stuff? So that's how that works out. Bright student is receptive. They're going to be really receptive to feedback. They're going to be really receptive to stimuli. They're going to be really receptive to what you and the teacher are giving out. Gifted student, intense, argumentative. I was just on the phone with my mom before this today. Apologize to her for this part of me, because I was always very argumentative, always got in trouble in school all the time for it too, because we come with these unique sense of fairness, what's fair, what's just, what's equitable, and if we feel that it's not, we will argue about that. It's not that we feel we have to necessarily be right. It's just sometimes we feel so strongly in what we believe in or convicted in that we'll do this. And then it goes back to they are better with adults than peers because they see themselves on an intellectual level more with adults than their age level peers too. So they want to be heard. Sometimes do they just want to argue for the sake of arguing? Sure, that happens for kids, right? But gifted kids can often be very, very intense, very, very argumentative. So part of that is figuring out, well, how do I do this in a way that shows that they still respect me, the parent, the guardian, that I do know what's best for them in this world because I'm the adult and they're the child, right? Because that's an important thing too, but does so in a way that they feel that they are still being honored and respected themselves back. So that's one of those, because they're highly, highly, highly self-critical. Gifted children come with a sense of perfectionism. There's a sense that we need to, especially once we're in particular environments, that we need to get it all right, that we need to do the best we can. And so we're going to be our own worst enemies. And when we're our own worst enemies about things, we're going to tend to be more intense and more argumentative, especially if the evidence we're being presented with might be that our perceptions are correct, because we have problems with failure, which we'll get into today. We have problems with failure. But part of your job as parents, you get the cool job. You just get to love your kids unconditionally no matter what, and that really helps them. They're also going to have strong, strong feelings and opinions. This goes right back to the argumentative. Strong, strong feelings and opinions that they're going to want to interject. They're not going to listen with interest, wait politely with a hand, waiting for you to call on them and recognize them. They're going to want to interject in the middle of it. You might be at the dinner table with your friends. They're in the living room watching TV, and they're interjecting on the adult conversation because the adult conversation in the dining room is more important to them than what's happening on TV, right? They're going to be doing that because they're constantly listening, constantly paying attention, and they're going to jump in because they're saying something that they find interesting, and they want to be heard, and they want to be recognized. But this strong feelings of opinions also is really going to get into it. They think something's not fair, they aren't going to let that go. So we have supports for all of this stuff. Bright students are often high achievers, the top of the group. These are going to be your straight A kids, right? They're going to always do well in school, always get straight A's. gifted students may or may not care that they get straight A's because, again, they're interested in learning, but their knowledge, what they're able to do with that knowledge, is going to be far advanced than their age level peers. You know, I've taught my share of third graders that were on par with some of my high school students, right? Because that's just where they were intellectually. They still needed a teddy bear and a blanket and stuck their thumb in my class, but they were intellectually up there with a high schooler, right? So they're beyond the group. Bright students enjoy straightforward sequential presentations of information. They love complexity. They love getting into the nitty-gritty of the world and the world around them and figuring it out. They love creating problems and they love solving problems. Here, they enjoy school. They don't necessarily enjoy school, but they do enjoy learning a lot. So if we can get the right environment where they have the learning in school that they enjoy, light bulbs are going to go off. It's actually awesome, super fun. Bright students, good at school, good student, and are people pleasers. They're not really interested in pleasing all people. Gifted students aren't. Certainly they don't want to be like rude or anything like that. But in general, these are going to be your teacher's pets. These may or may not be your teacher's pets. So I'm not saying that these characteristics, every gifted child has these characteristics. These are some of the characteristics that we're going to find in gifted children, and really looking at the difference between this child and this child is what this comes down to. So gifted characteristics, further, and these are beyond being a student, but being a person. So these get into being a person themselves beyond academics in school, right? They can exhibit an exceptionality in arts, an exceptionality in athletics, and exceptional talents that are valued by their individual cultures or their family units, right? These are some other things they do. They tend to have potential in more than one area as a gifted individual. You tend to be able to excel in many, many things, certainly not everything. Me, athletics, nope, not even remotely close. Arts, yeah, I can do that. Intellectual stuff, sure. Athletics, no, my siblings got that. They got the athletic gene, not me. That's okay though, right? We have our good things, we have our not so good things. It's okay. Highly motivated. Gifted kids are highly motivated in what they want to be motivated in. We cannot force that on them as much as we might try. Can be creative and imaginative, have a great memory. They can sometimes recall something that they read or heard 4 years ago, on what page and what book and what was happening around them and what color was their teacher wearing that day and what did their friend have for lunch. And they're going to be able to pull up all these memories because their brain is constantly making all these connections, like this massive spider web of these connections that go and go and go. And this you've probably already seen in your beautiful child, an advanced vocabulary way beyond that of their age level peer, which also means they're going to want to read way above their age level peers. Curious, good problem creators, really good at creating problems. They also like solving their problems. So I know my brother, back in the 80s, took apart every piece of electronic equipment in our house, computers or whatever, put them all back together, now makes a whole heck of a lot more money than I do as a teacher doing computers for a living, working out of Seattle, right? So yeah, he created his own problems, but he eventually was able to solve his own problems. So he was able to go that route too. So they're good at doing both. And so if your child presents you with a problem, give them this opportunity to work with you on solving that problem too, because this is where they're going to thrive. And as we already know, they can have very specific and limited interest on minutia that's going to end up growing the older they get and the more they absorb information and stimuli in the world around them. So it might have started off as this specific knowledge of all the dinosaurs that have ever existed in humankind or astronomy or whatever it might be. It eventually will expand to more and more things. But they can be experts on things that I have never even heard of because that's where their specific interest lies. Pardon me for coughing. So this part here, sensitivity. This could be in a lot of ways, heightened sensitivity. Could be the tags on clothing, that the tags on clothing are really, really bothersome and you keep seeing their holes in the back of their shirt because they just rip that tag off. That's highly sensitive. It could be the lights, it could be sounds, it could be people chewing food, right? They're constantly taking in the world around them and all the stimuli of the world around them. It can become quite overwhelming for them. And so when they've done this, when they do this, if they're not aware that that's what they're reacting to, it can also come to you as this huge outburst or this huge piece of anger, or they're blowing up. It's because they don't understand that there's this connection between their sensitivity and how they're processing stimuli, and then how they react to that stimuli in the outside world. So this is one, and we'll get into this again in a second. They can have varied interests change over time. They can have 20 different new interests in the course of a year. They're also children, so that can happen. And certainly varied interests from their age level peers as well. And they might have clear-cut learning goals, right? Who they are now, what they want to be when they grow up, exactly the pathway that they're going to get there, and what that means. Granted, most of your children are going to be in careers that haven't even been invented yet, but the goal is that we get them on the pathway to be able to achieve these future dreams and future goals. And then this highly developed sense of humor. They get things that other kids don't get. They understand things that other kids don't understand. So this is highly developed sense of humor. Often can be dry humor. You know, it can certainly be puns, right? Your children might be going through a pun phase right now because it's fun, because it goes with that linguistic stuff. They love growing and learning that way. This is written as a may. May have great academic intelligence. They have the potential. This goes back to the beginning where I said they have a potential. Potential does not mean output necessarily, though. So they have the potential for great academic intelligence. They just might not have manifested it yet. We're going to help you get there, right? We're going to help them get there. May excel in some areas and may not excel at all in others. May outright fail in some areas, and that's okay. That's okay. I know that sounds weird to say that's okay, but we're going to get into why failure is a good thing. They can struggle, and they can often be contradictory with themselves, contradictory nature. That asynchronicity where I mentioned earlier, I can have kids reading advanced physics books from college, but needing a teddy bear and sucking their thumb, right? You can have them do both. They're going to be these walking contradictions that are fascinating and amazing and wonderful. So it's contradictory in nature. Also contradictory can mean argumentative, as we've already discussed as well too. And here's why. They have high standards. Higher standards for themselves than you parents could ever put on them. This is going to lead to perfectionism, and perfectionism can often lead to them almost being paralyzed and not being able to start. Because they want to plan it all out in their head and know it's going to be executed well before they even begin. And because of this, they often are going to have trouble getting started. So sometimes when your child hasn't done work yet, hasn't turned in a project, hasn't done something like that, it might be that we're dealing more with this, that they haven't figured out what it looks like yet to be perfect, how to make it there, so they can't even begin starting. So that's going to come into play here. It also could be a couple of other different reasons happening, like maybe they have some executive functioning and they're not sure how to organize these ideas because their ideas are way up here, but they only still have the capability of a 9-year-old, 10-year-old child, right? So sometimes that's where we, the wonderful adults in their lives, get to come and help them figure out, well, how can we plan this giant idea in a way that you can manage it and make it grow? So we get to be a part of that too. They're going to have a wide range of interests or an extreme focus in one area. Their interests can change, their interests can vary, their extreme focuses can change and can vary. And they do enjoy solving problems and puzzles as well. They are original thinkers all the time. One of the greatest joys about being a gifted educator is, I get 100 individuals every single year, middle school, so I get that. And I get to see all their brilliant minds working and turning and how they think and how they process information. And some of them I've been able to teach them from 3rd grade, and now they're graduating from high school, right? And I've been able to see this trajectory of their lives, which is really exciting too. But one thing that is truly wonderful about them is they're all these original, amazing, unique people. I mean, all children are really, but just the way that their brains process information is such a joy. They are interested in experimenting and doing things differently just because they can. They don't want it easy. They want to be challenged. So sometimes they'll put that challenge on themselves, going back to they create those problems. So it might be, well, look, I can unscrew this water and drink this, but what if I build a machine that did that for me and then fed me the water? Because that's just interesting to them, and that's what they want to do instead. Right, so they're going to be experimenting and doing things differently. puts them highly imaginative, putting their ideas together, and then they are persistent, they are independent, and they are self-directed, right? Gifted kids usually are always going to be some version of this. I can do it on my own. I can do my own. I don't need your help. No, I got this. I got this. Except for us as adults, we need to know that, yes, sometimes that's their perfectionism, and we do need to find ways to help them through that. Within this, we're almost through the characteristics. Flexible thinkers. This means that they're not stuck to a rigid, there's only one way to do things. Sometimes they are, because sometimes they've already done their rehearsal in their head so many times and planned it out so many times in their head. They are positive that that's the only way it can get done, and they're not going to listen to anyone else's way, especially their parents' way of doing things. But if it came from them, the original idea or the process of generating new ideas, they're going to be very flexible thinkers. They're going to be outside the box thinkers often. Quick to grasp new information, that goes back to the 1 or 2 repetitions, and then ease to adapting to new situations. Not always. Some kids are going to come with extra sensitivities that they can't. They can't adapt to anything that's brand new for them. But some, this actually comes very, very easy to them. And then going, again, with making connections with stimuli in the world around them. They do have a unique command of language, whether that is language learning in school, the language that we use at home, whatever that might be. But they have the unique ability to command language, to read language, to absorb language. So it's another really cool thing when they're getting identified younger. Interest in certain topics, strong desire to learn, and a specific interest. And then going back to their thinking of being complex, logical, and insightful. Because insightful is one of the cool things too, that it's not just abstract, but it's logical, complex, and insightful, meaning that they're showing you the thought that they put into whatever it is that they're generating and how these different things connect to one another. They do have a desire to organize through games or complex ideas or schema. From when they were really young, this can be the sorting and organizing things, all the way to as they get older, this sorting and organizing ideas. This goes back to the idealism and the sense of justice at a very early age. This is only going to get stronger as they get older and know about the world around them. I have middle schoolers who will fully read newspaper and absorb media and want to come and talk about everything under the sun from Wall Street to politics. Going here with their social and political issues and injustices. They are going to be all too aware of things that are happening around them. They're absorbing information even if you don't realize that they are doing so. Whatever you're listening to on the radio, whatever you're reading, they're interested in that too. Whatever you're watching, whatever you're discussing, they're interested in that too. So they're going to constantly be absorbing these things. And you're going to see that sometimes maybe your child's having difficulty sleeping at night. You're not sure why. It could be something that they've absorbed, the stimuli that they've absorbed, these connections they've made, and they don't have the language or the capability of talking through those things yet. So sometimes you as a parent, that can be a matter of going in there and talking to them and say, what's on your mind, honey, right? What's keeping you up at night? Because I assure you, they are waking up at night. Maybe not all, but in general, I can make this generalization by now. They do wake up at night because they have all these ideas going in their head. Some kids work best by waking up, jotting these ideas down, and then going back to sleep. Sometimes it's talking through their ideas, talking through their day before they go to bed at night. Sometimes it's the breakfast table the next morning. But being present and being available to talk to them about what they're going through is going to really help. And then this will work with their deep, intense feelings and reactions. And this is important because they think big, they feel really, really big. They feel really, really big. And sometimes these feelings can be huge, over the top, elation or anger or sadness or breakdowns, right? We're going to have some of these extremes because they're still little bodies with these big potential brains. And we're trying to help them to grow into these people that we want them to grow into, but they're still children. So part of that is, how do we do that? How do you do that as parents? How do we help you as the school system? And what other resources are available to help you with this, right? Because we're dealing with amazing, incredible children, and they are such a joy. And how can we help them meet that potential? How can we help them be more aware of their environment in a way that's actually good for them at their age that they're at? They do, just like me again, prefer moving while talking. They do connect all their ideas, and they do like collaborating with the like-minded peers. And these are things that we can offer to them in the gifted educational environment. I want to get into some gifted identification, which is kind of where I started, is that there's something unique about all of you who are with us tonight, and that your child was identified with a different assessment than what we had previously been identifying gifted children. So the parents who were a part of the presentation a month ago that Karen Brown gave were identified in one way, and your children were identified in a different way, an exciting way, a very cool way. I mean, all the ways are good, but you'll get to one thing. But I want to get to what does that actually mean, right? What does being gifted identified actually mean? So we've talked through some characteristics of gifted learners, right? We've talked through what does it mean to be a gifted learner? How do we absorb information with the world around us? How do we use this to become who we are going to be as people? How do you as parents work within that? But what does it mean when we're coming down to how they have been tested, right? Because your children were all tested. That's how we ended up here today. So when we were talking at the very beginning, especially looking in PVSchools' definition of gifted students, we were talking about showing an exceptional level of performance in one or more areas of expression. One or more areas of expression being quantitative, nonverbal, or verbal. Quantitative is mathematical reasoning. So it means that within the area of expression that they had this innate ability of quantitative reasoning, or the ability to process and make these connections with the information in a mathematical way. And these tests were done with patterns, not with words. But that's what quantitative means. Nonverbal is going to be these patterns, is pattern making. It says making of the patterns. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like what comes next, right? How do we order these things? So pattern reasoning, and that's going to be this nonverbal. And then verbal reasoning is this ability to utilize language and process information within a linguistic aspect, as opposed to nonverbal or quantitative. Some kids are gifted in all 3 areas. Some kids are gifted in 2. Some kids are gifted in just 1, right? But what we do in school is we teach with all 3, right? So quantitative, mathematical reasoning, nonverbal, visual spatial reasoning, patterns, and then verbal is linguistic reasoning. Within these, these are the 3 areas that are tested. But we have some unique other things about gifted children, like gifted identification. So in many school districts across the state of Arizona and across the nation, English language learners are not allowed to be tested for gifted services until they have shown proficiency on their English language learning test, their Zella test. And so until they've mastered English, they don't even get to be tested to see are they in fact gifted. We give them a test with especially this new one that we just did, and then also the nonverbal test, which we'll get into in a minute, that identifies them as gifted even if they haven't mastered the English language yet. So we can start giving them the education they need to be successful. So this is an important part here, that this is an option. We don't become gifted just because we've mastered English already. Pardon me about sneezing. Sorry. Okay, sorry. We don't become gifted just because we mastered English. We already were gifted. And finally, we were assessed in a way that tapped into our gifted potential. That's going to be an important thing. We're born gifted. It can grow, certainly, but it's not like, oh, I did this and now I can be. This one is a very unique one. It's a very cool one. About to sneeze again, I'm sorry. Oh, did I get out of the way? Stay here. Sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. You can go off camera to sneeze if you need to.
Here, I'll be right here. Twice exceptional or 2E gifted. A twice exceptional student is a student who is gifted. We are gifted and have learning disability. We are gifted, maybe have dyslexia or dysgraphia. Maybe we have a 504 in medical health, something that's keeping us from reaching our full potential. Maybe we have an IEP, like a learning disability. We're gifted and You can be both. You can be gifted and need gifted services and need additional services. So twice exceptional students are also students that we're going to see all throughout the district. Could be some of your children. I know all my nieces and nephews are twice exceptional. It's part of who they are. They're these unique, amazing, stupendous kids who are gifted, and they also have all these other needs. And we get them in environments that help them with both. I'll show you on the next slide. I think it's the next slide. 2 slides over. I'll show you on this, and then I'll go back. So what we're looking at here is the gifted child. This is traditional, like an IQ score, right? This is a bell curve of IQ. So general public, 68% of the public is right here, between 85 and 115%. So most are right here around 100% for an IQ, okay? When we get here, this 115, these students are more able, maybe my high achieving bright students are in this range, right? And then when we get up here, we get into giftedness. This 130 range, we get into giftedness up to highly gifted, and then profoundly gifted. So about 2% of the population gifted, 0.1% of the population being profoundly gifted. On the other end of the spectrum, though, we have students who need additional services, and twice exceptional can use both. So twice exceptional might need the gifted services and also need specialized other services to help them. Maybe it's executive functioning, maybe it is dyslexia, maybe it is dysgraphia, maybe it is a learning disability, but they have these other needs, and they need a specialized education that helps them to do both, to overcome these areas of struggle with their strengths that they have in giftedness, to become their most achieving version of self, right? So here in PV, we work with that. We work with who they are, we identify them for who they are, and then we help them grow to where they need to be, right? So that's what a twice exceptional learner is, that they have these other things too. They are gifted, yes, but then we also have these other areas that we can work. Now, some of my favorite students, because they're these really cool, amazing people that I get to help them tap into who they truly are and help them to grow. And there's this huge sense of satisfaction in that, especially when they couple that with their perfectionism where they think they can't, and then you can help them tap into it. So, love quick spiel. This identification is how we all ended up here today, and this actually gets into this slide. So our district uses 3 tests. Our district uses the cognitive abilities tests, the Naglieri nonverbal abilities tests, and the newer one is the Naglieri general abilities tests. So this one is what your children were identified on, and this is how you were all here today. So the cognitive abilities test, and then the Naglieri is offered always to our Title I schools. Correct me if I'm wrong over there. Yep, always offered to our Title I school students. And then students who have been nominated for gifted testing have been tested with cognitive abilities tests, or when the state last year, I think we're in year 2, with the 2nd grade test for the state funded, it was this one, the cognitive abilities test. And then our district for this year for 3rd grade added in this one, the Naglieri one. So these are some similarities and differences between them. Let me know if I move too much. I'm sorry if I do. Okay, as long as I'm in front of this, I'm okay. Okay, thanks. So one thing that they all have is they all assess potential knowledge, right? Because this is important. This is what we're doing with gifted education, is we're assessing one's potential to gain knowledge, one's potential to absorb information and stimuli around them. So we're measuring this potential. So all 3 of them do this potential. Prior knowledge is the knowledge I already came in with that allows me to do well on the test. Cognitive abilities test, since the directions are in English, some of the questions are in English, it has this preponderance of I already have some knowledge to be able to master the test. Some, not always, but some. And that's why we have this question mark on equitable. Is it equitable? Is it not? You'll have some people say it's perfectly equitable, some other experts that say, Mom, maybe not really, right? If I have to have knowledge to pass the test, am I really equitable? But there are studies that show both, that yes, it is, and studies that show maybe not really. Our district combines them. So our district, if you do this, then your next test would be this, so we can actually get both. And now your children were all identified over here. So what this one does is assesses all those 3 areas, that quantitative, that qualitative, and that verbal. So the COGAT does that and the new one, your child was just identified, also does that. All 3 areas, okay? This one was just the nonverbal, the visual spatial. And then these 2 are equitable because they don't use language at all. So what this one is, the one that your children were just identified under, is it assesses all 3 areas. It assesses potential knowledge, and it is deemed equitable for all learners. And this is the one that your children were just identified under, and what brings us all here today, as opposed to the people from last month. Their children were identified in a different way, under a different test. So this is why we're all here, because of this unique test, and I can answer questions about that test if we need to as we go further. But this is important here because this gets into how was your child identified, and what does this mean for your child and their education. So I'm going to go back here. So here, the gifted child, we have some basic areas of development for all kids, right? So all areas of development for all children. So this would be a general child, right? The age of your child, ring of chronological age. So we have academic knowledge in mathematics. We have our motor or fine or gross movement knowledge, academic verbal knowledge, social knowledge, maybe a specialized talent, and then our emotional knowledge. So a general child, back to that 100 here, right? General child here would be in this ring of development. A gifted child kind of be all over the place. It's called asynchronous development. They're atypical in their child development because we can be very, very high in our academic knowledge and still lower. And this is just in general graph. Doesn't mean all children are this way. I've had some that are very, very low on emotional and social, and very, very high in others. Or if I'm twice exceptional, maybe it seems like I'm not high in them, but I really am once the right people, the right team are around me to help me tap into that and help me learn and help me grow. So this is an example. Please, by all means, you can take a picture if you need to. The ring of age is still here, but then we have these unique abilities that extend beyond, and some others that are below their age level peers. Often in the sense of social and emotional might be a little bit below their age level peers, only because they haven't been able to tap into playing with their peers the way that their peers like to play. That can have them be a little bit more limited. It's not necessarily a deficit at all. It's just part of who they are and how they develop. But gifted education will help balance that because they'll be around people who think like that and process information and stay. Ultimately, gifted children are complex and unique, and learning with them and loving them is a wonderful and complex journey full of highs and lows and ups and downs. But I love this roller coaster more than anything. So, meeting the needs of a gifted learner comes down to 2 things. We are marrying academic needs with affective needs. Affective or social and emotional needs, right? We're dealing with full children, we're dealing with full people. So we're not just dealing with their academic needs, but the rest of what makes them uniquely them. So within these, we have their unique needs, their social needs, their emotional needs, how they navigate the world, how they process information in the world all around them, versus their academic is how they learn, the challenges they want, and having gifted certified teachers. Gifted certified teachers, we are certified in gifted education. That means we've taken additional coursework in gifted education, gifted children. How do they learn? What's the best way to teach them? What are the unique needs? And we've been certified by the state of Arizona, by the district, to teach these children because we understand what makes them different than their age level peers, and we work with one another in the gifted department to make the curriculum different, to actually help them learn and grow better. Within additional needs, we have these additional needs too that are met both in education and at home, within this idea of collectivism versus individualism. So in different families, it might look one way or the other, or it might be more of a balance. Within collectivism, we're really focusing on how individuals can work together and collaborate together to work more effectively. With individualism, we're focusing on how an individual can achieve a task. When we're dealing with giftedness, sometimes your child has manifested the giftedness more this, working together with others. Sometimes your child maybe has worked more as an individual with others. When we get to the world of education, we got to do both, right? We work well with others, but we also need to have the opportunity to learn and grow as our own selves, as our individual selves. So we have this as married together when we're dealing with education. Here at PV Schools, we do have, here at PV Schools, we do have some ways that we can help meet your children's needs in the educational environment, and we have 3 basic educational environments. We have the content replacement environment. I'll start down here. Content replacement is up for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade at every school. We have this content replacement where they were in the gifted cluster classrooms, where they're with gifted peers and age level peers in this classroom environment. And then they are pulled into math and literature for content replacement. So every elementary school has this available. And then some of the schools have what's called a self-contained environment, which is available. And when you were given a letter inviting your child into gifted education, your letter specified more of that information. You'll let me know if I'm wrong, right, tomorrow? So your letter would have specified what did your child qualify for, okay? And then we also have summer enrichment. We have gifted summer school, which is really cool. It's just enrichment summer school. It's like your kids get to go and they get to play and they get to learn in those specialized, really cool interests that they are fascinated with and feels nothing like school. And it gives you a couple free hours to yourself too. But gifted education is really cool. Our summer enrichment is really cool. So we have these 3 ways, these 3 learning environments that we have at our district for our gifted learners within these. And then I wanted to get into, I'll give you some more on gifted things, supports that we have for you. But I wanted to get into some other just needs of a gifted child as a child. So we're getting past students. So up to here we are kind of student. Here we're going to get into more of a gifted child themselves. They need structure or predictability enough to know where the parameters are, but not so strict that they feel boxed in, that they can't move, that they can't grow, that they can't expand past it. Because when they're dealing with their perfectionism and their own self-doubt, they need to know that they're going to be loved, they're going to be protected, that they're going to be taken care of, even if they fail. And we're going to get into failure because failure is actually a really important part of learning. It gets into this productive struggle. Many of the times they haven't had productive struggle yet. And when they first encounter struggle, they're going to end up shutting down. So letting them know that that's actually part of learning, a part of growing, and a part of becoming the best version of yourself is going to be important of that. And we can't help them through productive struggle if we're not giving them some sense of structure, predictability too. This allows them to work through collaboration and out-of-the-box thinking, whether at home or at school. A movement, absolutely necessary. Mindset goes with that too. If I'm not used to productive struggle, the first time I approach it, I'm going to be like, I can't, there's no way I can. So really working within their mindset of we all learn, we all grow, we all struggle. It's part of being human. It's going to be really, really helpful. And this is going to help them work on their developmental skills. And then multi-dimensional experiences. If we're constantly observing information, making connections with the world around us, giving us these experiences that allow us to do this is going to be very, very important. And most importantly, obviously beyond loving your child, is honoring who they are and who they present as themselves, telling you what their needs are and working with them through those needs, including their overexcitabilities. So overexcitabilities, did I have the words pop up? I do have the words pop up. So the overexcitabilities, these are going to be all these wonderful things about them as a child. And then in gifted kids, these kind of go a little bit higher, right? Our sensories, we already talked about, things, they can smell things, they can hear things, the tags are bothering them. These are going to be some of their sensory overexcitabilities. Not every child has all of these, by the way, but your child might have one more so than another. So that's sensory. Then we have, I don't know which order I put them in, imaginational overexcitability, where they're jumping into their imagination. I often will work with gifted kids that looks like they're tuning out, and I'm not sure what's getting through, what's not getting through. And so it's a really big thing to be like, okay, where were you just now? Walk me through, where was your mind at? And they'll tell you about this whole world that they were imagining. But what's really interesting is the concept you were just teaching was somehow embedded in that world. But they get really big into this imaginational overexcitability. Psychomotor, where they look like they're bouncing off the walls and parkouring and jumping off everything and rolling around on the floor. You're not sure what's going on. Is that they're trying to regulate their body with what's happening in their mind. They're trying to get them to match up with They're trying to seek that extra sensory part within this. So psychomotor, movement helps them learn. Movement helps them make these connections. We can end up with this emotional intensity, those highs and lows, going back to that emotion all over the place. And then the intellectual, right? This is where they're just so innately curious and they just want to learn and absorb and grow, learn and absorb and grow. So we end up with that as an overexcitability. I'm not going to make you turn to a neighbor. That's okay. You don't need to do this. But part of it is, I want you to just pause real quick for yourself and think about, do you see any of these within your children themselves? So I've yet to meet a parent who doesn't, have yet to meet a student who doesn't have at least one of these, but if not more than one of these overexcitabilities. But part of it is knowing that what you're experiencing with your child is actually very normal in the world of gifted education, right? It's part of who they are. They're these unique, amazing, wonderful people. And my mom, you know, when we talk about it, she's like, I wish I would have known about this when you were growing up. I think I would have done a better job with you because I would have understood you better and how you are observing the world around you and processing the information around you and why you are the way you are, right? And so for her, she didn't have these tools. So it's one of the things that we want to do is make sure you guys do have these tools, including this, getting into that permission to fail. So this is really important because when we're gifted, we think we should know everything. Well, in general, people think they should know everything, but it really is this profound, deep, I should know everything when you're gifted. And therefore you think we shouldn't make mistakes, that we should be perfect at all times. But all of us learn, all of us grow. I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly growing. And we need to normalize that for our children and let them know this is a normal part of growing as a person. Mistakes are normal. This is how we learn, right? We can't succeed until we've grown through things. So there are some things that you can do to help your child, especially when we get to this point where they're ready to start growing beyond what they're capable of and pushing themselves into that productive struggle environment. Pep talk beforehand, letting them know what is going to happen, almost like a dress rehearsal. Okay, let's talk through this, let's talk through this, let's talk through this. Gifted kids can often come with a lot of anxiety. This is going to help with that anxiety, is the talking through it so they can visualize it and plan for that. And then really talking to them beforehand about what are some expected challenges, some expected mistakes, or some expected setbacks that you might actually have in this that are perfectly normal to experience, right? Having these conversations beforehand minimizes them when they're in the moment of having these moments, the moments of this turmoil that they're going through. And then having a post-activity discussion, or if they're not verbal enough to discuss it with you afterwards, if they write in journals or draw pictures, having them do a reflection on it once they've gone through it will help them get through that, and then discussing it with them again. And then you can go back through it, and then they will become, it's kind of cool because once they recognize that this is a normal pattern of learning and growing, they actually like making mistakes, because then they start to see it as this mind shift switch into, this is actually a good thing. Look how much I'm learning, look how much I'm growing, look how much I can do, look how far I've come. And that's an important one too. At the beginning of every year, we give our students assessments on what they should master by the time they're at the end of the year. But without fail, if they didn't get 100%, and they never do because they shouldn't, at least not by middle school and upper elementary school, they feel that they're a failure. It's like, no, look how much you already know of what you were supposed to learn. Congratulations, you already know 42% of what I was going to teach you this year. Now I can just focus on the other 60% and you'll pass that with you. Right? So part of it is normalizing this thing. You're not supposed to know everything already. We didn't come into this world knowing everything already, right? We're supposed to learn. We're supposed to be curious. We're supposed to do these things. So things you can do at home to help with this. Allow them to be curious. Work within those things of curiosity that they have. Play is essential. Playing with the environment around us is a lot of how we learn. I still use play in my middle school classrooms. Accepting them and loving them for who they are, even in the middle of their struggle, giving them the opportunities to learn, to grow, to shine, to fail, giving them your time. Your time is the most important thing for them in the world, and by all means, like the most important thing. Every single year when we're going into holiday, the thing we always ask the kids, what are you looking forward to? Always time with their family, even in middle school. time with their parents, time with their families. You're the most important person in the world to them. So they want your time. Play games with them, read books with them, just listen to them and engage with them in the world of where they are. What are they wanting to learn more about? What are they wanting to grow? I don't mean like overindulge your kid, right, obviously, but in an appropriate way, that you're showing them so much love and so much nurturing for who they are. So there are some, and you can take pictures of this, and again, you'll have this at the end too. There are some resources that we do have available for you here at the district as parents to continue helping you. We do have the Gifted Parent Handbook. We have the Parent Portal, and we also have parent newsletters. So if you hop onto Gifted, and these are shorter versions of how you can get there, but if you just go onto the Gifted website, for the Gifted website, you're able to get to the parent thing. The Parent Portal, it looks like this, right? So the Parent Portal is wonderful. It has your breakdown and the gifted contacts for everyone working in the gifted. So Tara's right back here with us. Our communication from our parent website for you here, talking about giftedness with your child from NADC. Gifted in Paradise is our newsletter. Our Gifted Speaker Series, where presentations like tonight are placed up on that. The Gifted website in general. We have Gifted Parent links for helping you. Links for extending reading, math, science, social studies, some additional enrichment ideas for you as well, and then some technology links for you too. So our Gifted in Paradise Parent Portal is going to be very, very helpful for you as you're moving forward in this world of gifted education. This is going to be, I have it bookmarked. So this is going to be a very important resource for you to help you. And here's the contact information of these people again. So you had it here. And here's the contact information for these people again. Karen Brown, who's our Director of Gifted Education. Our Administrative Assistant is Jessica. And Phaedra is the one who was your gifted testing technician who knows about the gifted test and unique scores of your individual children within that. And then there's additional resources beyond our district. So beyond our district, we have our Arizona Association for Gifted and Talented. This is our state organization for gifted and talented education. We have a national organization for gifted and talented education at NAGC. And then SANG is social and emotional needs of gifted children. So they all work within gifted. Within AAGT, I'll just focus on state and national. Within AAGT, you have the website itself. Then you also have a parent handbook within there, a parent institute coming up September 9th. Affiliate groups, which are working with parents within the district, social enrichment, student enrichment scholarships, SANG parent discussion groups, so that's partnering back with SANG, social and emotional needs, and ADT for parent discussion groups, and then community action networks here too. And then for NAGC, that's the national one. If you go to NAGC Knowledge Center, you can get to the parents links, and from there you have tip sheets, such as Gifted 101, talking with your child about giftedness, asynchronous development, making friends, classroom advocacy, and so much more. There's a whole world open to you of resources and information and networks and people who are here to go on this journey with you and to support you and help you as parents as you go into this new world, beautiful world with your children. I'm going to leave this up here for a moment, and we're going to get into questions as I have this up here. The second form that you all got today when you walked in the door, this was a survey. So as I said, that I'm here as a partnership with our district and ASU. And this survey is the second part of this. So the presentation was the first. Parents at home, you can just do this QR code for the survey too. And then you'll be able to link to the survey directly. This survey asks you to this first part here is just the background questions. Well, if you consent to do the survey, that would be the first thing, yes. If not, and you fill it out, I'm assuming that's a yes. No identifying information is collected. I will never know who filled out what. You're gonna turn them in at the back face down, so I'll never know who did it. But you'll have background questions prior to being tested. What was your experience with gifted education? And then the questions starting on this page go into prior to today's presentation. What was your knowledge before today's presentation? What was your knowledge after today's presentation? So you're rating that knowledge on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the strongly disagree to 5 being a strongly agree. There's only 13 questions there. There's just a before and after. Then After that, it's just 2 questions. Where did I put it up in the back? 2 questions about me as a presenter. And it's really hard to give you all this information in just an hour, so I apologize. But me as the presenter, and then any additional questions you have, you do have a place to write these questions. We also have some more time where I can answer some questions for you as well. But I wanted to let you know about the survey so you can do this. Again, it was on the consent letter. What this survey does is it helps us better plan for meeting your needs as parents and guardians of your gifted children, so that we're able to better figure out what more can we do to help you, to help support you. So that's what this is for. And then the one a presenter is just for me, so I know how it is. But that's what that one is. And then I'll let you start filling this out, but if you have questions, I am certainly here to answer the questions. If you want your questions, we're going to do the ones for the people on there first. Yes,
Yes, I was just going to say, I'm going to stop recording the presentation since that part is over. This presentation will be on the PVUPC YouTube channel, along with a lot of other helpful seminars that we have available there. And it should be there in about 24 hours plus, and stick around for questions. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you.